Thank you, Scott, and hope everybody had a very happy Memorial Day weekend. Now that summer is officially started, you never know it though, we wanted to touch base for the end of National Bike Month here with our wonderful Chief Gallant to talk about bike safety, driver safety, and the rules of the road. So Chief, first question for you. For drivers, what should they know about the laws around bicyclists, people who are biking or just sharing the road?
Well, I think probably the most important thing overall is just general safety. So with bikes, you need to make sure that as a driver of a vehicle that you're giving bicyclists at least 3 feet for the distance from your vehicle to wherever they're biking in the road. And that's primarily for their safety. And there is a law that requires that you provide them with at least 3 feet. Also, if you're passing a vehicle in the same direction and you want to make a right-hand turn, you have to make sure that you can do that right-hand turn safely so that you're not cutting off the bicyclist or causing any kind of safety issue for the bicyclist. So when making a right turn when in front of a bicycle, make sure that you're doing that safely and giving them time to react so they don't get hurt.
And I think people should know you can also cross the center line. So you may cross the double yellow when it's safe to do so. We got a lot of questions about that after Princess Point Road last spring. Yes,
you can. Even though it's double no passing with the lines on the road, if you need to pass a bicycle, as long as it's safe, you can cross the center line and then return to the travel lane once you're safely past that bicycle.
And honking a horn, is that okay to do?
Honking a horn is not a great thing to do, especially when you're on a bicycle, because if you're not aware there might be a vehicle behind you and you hear a horn, that may cause you to shift your riding position or move the handlebars, which could cause a crash. So unless it's an absolute emergency, you shouldn't be using your horn in that situation.
Yeah, I've definitely nearly jumped off my bike.
Yeah.
So for sure. I think we'll probably do a demo after that about hand signals. I think drivers are aware of many different hand signals, but maybe not bicyclist ones. So we'll be sure to show that afterwards as well as something called the Dutch Reach. So you don't have to go to the Netherlands. It'd be cool to, but that way you can safely open the car door without dooring anybody. It's always good to know. So what other laws do we have in Maine and maybe in Yarmouth around biking and rolling and other modes of travel?
You know, I think one of the questions that we get often, not just the police department, but also the town, is revolving around bicyclists that are using the sidewalks. And that's one of the things that Yarmouth does allow. The state allows each individual municipality to determine whether or not bicyclists can ride on the sidewalk. Yarmouth does allow it. The one thing that we want to make sure of is that we're giving pedestrians that are on the sidewalk the right of way, and we're not coming up behind them at any kind of speed that we're going to scare them or potentially strike them. I tell young people, especially, if you're going to ride on the sidewalk, which can be safer than the road depending on your age and your skill level, to kind of give a shout out to the person that you're coming up behind to let them know that you're coming up behind them so they're not startled. And if you're crossing in opposition, you know, the bicyclist can go off onto the lawn a little bit or the grass to avoid somebody on the sidewalk.
Yes, my favorite are all the variety of bicycle bells you can get. That's generally a good thing. And there's nothing more bucolic than the sound of bicycle bells up and down the street and, you know, whistling, saying, "Pardon me." That's a good one, old-fashioned.
The old chime, old chime strike on the banana seat bicycle.
Definitely.
Kind of showing my age, but get some streamers for those handlebars.
Perfect, yeah. So young and old, you can all be polite. It is in your power. What are some other common streets or biking and safety concerns you get this type of year, especially when it gets warm and everybody's eager to see the sunshine?
There are some hardcore riders that are out there for the better part of the year, but primarily when the warm weather picks up is when we start to see the influx of folks that are out you know, in different modes of transportation, especially walking and bicycling. The big thing is, you know, if you're bicycling, you know, you have to obey the rules of the road just like the drivers do. Sometimes drivers and bicyclists can do a better job, but for the most part, people are pretty good. You know, use signals, as you mentioned before, when you're making turns. You can ride to the left as much as you feel comfortable in case there's a problem with the shoulder, that it's broken or minimal. In some of our roads, the shoulder is almost non-existent. But you know, wear a helmet, which is always a great safety message. It's the law for kids under 16. Adults, the best thing that you can do is obviously wear a helmet to be safe, but also to show the behavior that helps the young people realize that, you know, it's not uncool to wear a bike helmet.
No. I am called the traveling town highlighter, though, so.
It's great to wear. It's great to wear the bright colors, whether that's a vest or, you know, a whole outfit. I've seen the whole thing, but it's good to be seen on the road. That's important. People aren't always looking for other things. Sometimes there's a lot of distractions in the vehicle, whether they're purposeful or not, and so we want to make sure that bikes do everything they can. If you're traveling at night on a bicycle, make sure you have a light. That helps a lot, front and back, to make sure that cars and other people can see you. And essentially, really, it's the other part is up to the other modes of transportation, the drivers, that are making sure that they're paying attention, not being on your cell phone, which is against the law, and just making sure that you're aware for people coming out of driveways or around school areas or around playgrounds, areas where people congregate, that you're paying attention to the potential traffic, both on foot and on bicycle.
So one of the big things we hear, particularly right now with people who are also walking and rolling, is at the crosswalks. So distracted driving comes into play, but it's really important that people know that you have to yield to people on the crosswalks. Yes,
that is the law. If someone makes themselves known to be waiting for the crosswalk or in the crosswalk, you must yield for them. It's difficult sometimes when there's other cars parked in the area. You may not see them, but as long as you're traveling the speed limit, not being distracted, you should be able to catch that. And we put up signs around the town where we can on some of the most heavily used crosswalks to kind of give people a reminder to make sure that they're watching for that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, our cars remind us, but sometimes it's good to see something in the road too that makes you remember to slow down and yield.
If only our phones reminded us, because so many people would be reminded.
That's true, that's true. One complaint we get often to the Bike and Ped Committee is about e-bikes. And I know we've had some complaints about dirt bikes too, or ATVs. Basically the things that go vroom vroom that you wouldn't expect to go vroom vroom. What are some things that people should know about that?
So the laws in Maine for e-bikes are fairly clear. There's 3 different kinds of e-bikes. They're able to be driven on the road. But the biggest issue that we have with kind of motorized vehicles have to do with the small mini bikes, or the small pocket bikes, sometimes they're called. And what we've been seeing lately in other communities as well is young people, school-age kids, having these dirt bikes or these small motorcycle-looking devices, riding them on the road. Unfortunately, that is illegal. Those are considered off-road vehicles in the state of Maine. They cannot be registered. It is not safe for them to be on those devices on the road. They're meant to be ridden on off-road or on private property. So we have had some instances with some young people. Education is usually our first resort, trying to make sure they understand, and obviously their parents understand. But ultimately, those don't belong in the street. And at some of the young ages that we're seeing people, their decision-making capability might not be 100% all the time. So sometimes they're taking risks they don't need to take.
Yeah. And I think the Parks and Trails team would also really love it if they would stay off the trails too.
Exactly.
We'll leave them for another segment to make that plea. For sure. Well, thank you so much for your time, Chief. We really appreciate it. All right, we're going to go hit the road and show some of those hand signals, the polite kind, and some best practices for being on the road as well as a cyclist and a driver. Hey folks, Julie Dabowski, liaison to the Bike Ped Committee here. Just wanted to follow up on our conversation with the Chief about hand signals so that drivers are aware, as well as people who might be starting to explore on their bikes of all ages. So, quick review. I know not everybody is comfortable with one hand, maybe on a bike, or no hands, but generally the hand signals are, you put a hand down pointing for stopping, and if you feel comfortable, you can do a hand out for left turn, a hand out for right turn. But if people aren't comfortable with their hands, the other way to signal that you're turning left is to go up using your right hand. So that's a quick view. You can also tell a car that you're taking the full lane by pointing to the side or extending your whole hand so that they know that you're moving out maybe from the shoulder into the full lane, particularly if you're going to make a left turn. Is really helpful. And as always, use your bell wear bright reflective clothing, actually per the law, riding highlighter, and those are just some of the key tips. You can find out more information on safe biking guidance from the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. Thanks. Hey folks, just wanted to show everyone what's called the Dutch Open. It's originated in the Netherlands because there are so many cyclists there, and it's just a safer way as a driver to open up your car door. Obviously I'm in front of Town Hall in the parking lot, but if you're on a street and you're opening your door, this easy trick is just to open it with your right hand and turn, and that actually forces you to take a look behind you, even in looking in the side view mirror, and that way when you open up the door you can very quickly see if there's someone coming right past you as you open up the door, and you won't door them.